I'm Haley, 34 years old. The doctor just informed me that my husband Louis won't survive the night. His oxygen levels are dropping, and there's nothing more they can do. I stand here staring at his unconscious face through the hospital room window, knowing that I may never hear his voice again. The hardest part is that I can't even hold his hand because I'm showing CO symptoms too. Where are you watching from today? Leave your location in the comments below, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe. If you've ever felt utterly helpless watching a loved one slip away, you'll want to stay for what happens next. 3 weeks ago, everything seemed manageable. Louis had been feeling tired and running a slight fever, nothing alarming for a 36-year-old engineer who worked long hours and rarely called in sick. We both thought it was just stress from his recent promotion at the firm. But when he collapsed in our kitchen that Tuesday morning, clutching his chest and struggling to breathe, I realized we were dealing with something far more serious than exhaustion. The ambulance ride felt endless. Louis drifted in and out of consciousness while I held his hand, whispering reassurances I didn't believe myself. "You're going to be fine," I kept telling him, even as his breathing grew more labored. The paramedics worked efficiently, but I could see the worry in their eyes when they thought I wasn't looking. At the hospital, they immediately transferred him to the CO ward. The test results came back positive within hours. By evening, his condition had worsened so rapidly that doctors began discussing ventilator options. I watched through glass barriers as nurses in full protective gear surrounded his bed, moving with urgency and precision. My own symptoms began that night: a scratchy throat, body aches, the deep exhaustion that made even simple tasks feel impossible. But Louis needed me. I couldn't afford to be sick too. I camped out in the hospital waiting room, surviving on vending machine coffee and whatever food kind strangers offered. Our 8-year-old twins, Jake and Emma, needed a safe place to stay during this crisis. My parents seemed like the obvious choice. They lived on a large property outside the city with plenty of space and fresh air. More importantly, they had recently taken in my sister Rebecca's 3 children after she and her husband were arrested on drug charges 6 months ago. Rebecca's children, Tyler, Madison, and Sam, ages 11, 9, and 5, had been living with my parents since the arrests. My mother had immediately stepped up, saying, "Family takes care of family," and officially adopted the children when it became clear Rebecca's legal troubles would be long-lasting. When I called my mother from the hospital, she agreed to look after Jake and Emma without hesitation. "Of course they can stay here," she said. "Just until you and Louis are both healthy again. It's the responsible thing to do." I immediately tested the twins for CO. When their results came back negative, the relief was overwhelming. My mother picked them up that afternoon, and I felt incredibly grateful that my children would be safe and well cared for while I focused on Louis's fight for survival. That evening, my mother mentioned she would need help with expenses. 5 children is quite a financial burden, especially since Rebecca left them without any resources. Your father and I are managing, but extra support would be appreciated. The request made perfect sense. 5 children required substantial resources for food, clothing, activities, everything that 2 traumatized children needed during the worst period of their young lives. I arranged to transfer $50,000 from our savings account, money Louis and I had set aside for emergencies. If this wasn't an emergency, nothing was. "This should help with the immediate needs of all the children," I told her, feeling thankful I could contribute something meaningful while being physically unable to care for my own kids. My mother was incredibly grateful. "You're so generous, sweetheart. This will make everything much easier. Don't worry about Jake and Emma. They'll be fine here with their cousins." As Louis's condition worsened and my own symptoms intensified, I called every evening to check on the children. They sounded happy enough during our brief conversations, chattering about their cousins, the fort they had built in the woods behind my parents' house, and the new puppy my father had brought home. They asked when I'd be better, when they could come home, when everything would go back to normal. I lie to them with a skill that surprises me, painting pictures of recovery and reunion that feel more and more fictional. Soon, babies, I promise. Mommy just needs a little more time to get strong again. The doctors discuss my prognosis in calm, measured tones. My lungs have sustained significant damage, they explain. But with time and proper treatment, recovery is possible. Physical therapy will be essential. Rest is crucial. Stress must be minimized to avoid complications. Stress, as though losing my life partner and being separated from my children while fighting for my own survival could be considered any form of manageable stress. My oxygen levels improve slowly over the coming weeks. Good news, the doctors assure me. Progress in the right direction. But something feels wrong in my chest, a heaviness that isn't just emotional. Breathing feels more difficult than it should. Simple conversations leave me winded. During one of my mother's check-in calls, she mentions needing more financial help. The children are growing so quickly, she explains. School clothes, activities, medical checkups. It's more expensive than anticipated. I arrange another transfer. This time, $20,000. Whatever they need, I tell her. I just want them to be happy and secure. You're so generous, sweetheart. This will help tremendously, she says. 3 weeks into my hospitalization, something shifts in my breathing patterns. The respiratory therapist notices it first during our routine session. Mrs. Patterson, I want Dr. Williams to take a look at your latest scans, she says. Dr. Williams arrives that afternoon with films showing ghostly landscapes of my damaged lungs. Haley, we're seeing some complications that concern us, he says. Your lungs aren't responding to treatment as well as we'd hoped. What does that mean? I ask, already dreading the answer. It means we may need to take more aggressive measures to help you heal. There's a procedure we can try, but it requires putting you under general anesthesia for an extended period. Extended period? The phrase makes my stomach clench with fear. How extended? Potentially several weeks, maybe longer. Your lungs need complete rest to have the best chance of recovery. I think of Jake and Emma asking when mommy will come home. I think of Tyler, Madison, and Sam, who have already lost their parents and don't need to witness another adult disappearing from their lives. What happens if I don't do the procedure? Dr. Williams' expression becomes even graver. Without intervention, your prognosis isn't good, Haley. This is your best chance. That evening, I call my mother to explain the situation. I may be unconscious for a while, weeks or possibly months. Can you continue caring for the children? Of course, sweetheart. Don't worry about anything except getting better. The children will be fine. The next morning, as they prepare to put me under, my last conscious thought is gratitude that my children are safe with people who love them. At least I did one thing right. What I don't know is that this decision will cost me everything I have left to lose. Consciousness returns slowly, like surfacing from deep, dark water. The first sensation is brightness, harsh fluorescent lights that make my eyes water and my head pound. Then comes the beeping, rhythmic and persistent, accompanied by the soft whoosh of machines I can't identify. My throat feels raw, as though I've been screaming for hours. A woman in scrubs approaches my bed, her face kind but unfamiliar. She looks older than the nurses I remember, with gray streaks in her brown hair and lines around her eyes that suggest she's seen too much over too many years. "Hello, Haley," she says gently, settling into the chair beside my bed. "I'm Patricia, your primary nurse. You've been asleep for a while, sweetheart. Do you remember being in the hospital?" I try to speak, but only manage a whisper. How long? The words scrape against my throat like broken glass. Patricia's expression becomes carefully neutral, the look healthcare workers perfect when they're about to deliver devastating news. 4 months, honey. It's March now. You've been in a medically induced coma since November. Your lungs needed complete rest to heal from the damage. 4 months. The number doesn't compute. 4 months of lost time, lost memories, lost moments with my children. My kids, I managed to say, though making the words requires enormous effort. Patricia reaches for a water cup, busying herself with adjustments to my IV line. Anything except meeting my eyes directly. Let me get you some water first, she says. Then we'll talk about everything that's happened. But I don't want water. I want answers. Every instinct I have as a mother is screaming that something is catastrophically wrong. My kids, I ask, panic rising. Where are they? She finally looks directly at me, and I see something in her expression that makes my heart race. Pity. Professional sympathy. The look healthcare workers give family members when they're about to destroy someone's world with unavoidable truth. Haley, there have been some significant changes while you were recovering. Your family made some decisions they felt were necessary given the uncertainty of your condition. The phrase necessary decisions sends ice through my veins. In my experience, adults only describe decisions as necessary when they've done something unforgivable and want to avoid taking responsibility for choosing convenience over compassion. What kind of decisions? I ask, my voice sounding stronger than I feel, though my hands are shaking under the hospital blanket. Your children were placed in foster care, she says quietly. Your parents felt they couldn't continue caring for 5 children indefinitely, not knowing if or when you'd recover. The words hit me like physical blows, each one landing with devastating precision. Foster care. My babies are in foster care, not with loving grandparents who've known them since their birth, but with strangers who view them as temporary responsibilities rather than family. While I was fighting for my life, unconscious and helpless, my own mother gave my children away. The woman who had promised family takes care of family when she adopted Rebecca's kids had apparently decided that principle only applied selectively. I need my phone, I say, my voice stronger now despite the burning in my throat. I need to call them right now. Haley, please try to stay calm, she says. I know this is overwhelming, but there's more you need to know. What more? Your mother made some financial decisions during your incapacitation, she says softly. Financial decisions. My savings account. The money Lou and I accumulated over years of careful planning and responsible choices. What kind of financial decisions? I demand. Patricia pulls her chair closer, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. She accessed your bank accounts using medical power of attorney. Significant amounts were withdrawn. Your house was also listed for sale. This information penetrates where the news about my children couldn't. My house, the home Louie and I bought together, where we brought the twins home from the hospital, where we plan to grow old together. That's impossible, I say, my voice shaking with disbelief. She doesn't have that kind of access to my accounts. Healthcare power of attorney can be expounded during medical emergencies, Patricia explains. I don't know all the legal details, but the social worker mentioned it when they came to discuss your children's placement. Social worker, foster care, bank accounts, house for sale. Each fact exists separately in my mind, like scattered puzzle pieces I can't fit together. This is someone else's nightmare, not mine. I was supposed to wake up and go home to my children. I was supposed to start rebuilding our life without Louie. Let me guess. I say finally, my voice cutting through the institutional quiet of the hospital room. The same woman who couldn't manage 5 children somehow managed to rob me blind while I was unconscious? Patricia says nothing. Funny how financial transactions became manageable when personal profit was involved. I want to see my lawyer, I say, my voice sharp now, and I don't want my parents notified that I'm awake.
Can you do that for me? I ask, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. Patricia nods immediately. I'll make those calls, but Haley, you need to prepare yourself for what comes next. Recovery from this kind of extended coma takes time. Your muscles are severely weakened and your coordination needs work. Even if the legal issues resolve quickly, you'll need several more weeks before you can leave the hospital. Several more weeks of my children thinking I've abandoned them. Several more weeks of strangers making decisions about their lives, their schedules, their futures. The anger that finally surfaces feels clean and sharp, cutting through the fog of confusion and grief that surrounded me for months. For the first time since waking up, my mind feels completely clear. My mother has made a serious mistake if she thinks I'm going to lie here quietly while she dismantles everything Louie and I built together. I may be weak physically, but she's about to discover that I'm still very much capable of fighting back. My lawyer, David Morrison, arrives the next morning carrying a briefcase that looks like it survived several legal wars. His usually cheerful demeanor is noticeably absent as he settles into the chair beside my hospital bed, pulling out a thick manila folder with the gravity of a surgeon preparing for a complex operation. Haley, we need to discuss some serious legal violations. Your mother has been very busy during your recovery period. He opens the folder with deliberate care, revealing bank statements, property documents, and what appears to be adoption paperwork. My breath catches when I see my children's names on official forms I never signed, never even knew existed. Let's start with the financial issues, David continues, spreading papers across my bedside table like evidence in a criminal trial. She accessed your checking account, savings account, retirement fund, and your emergency savings. Total amount withdrawn over 4 months, $127,000. The number hangs in the air between us like an accusation. More than twice what I'd originally given her for the children's expenses. More than Louie and I saved during our entire marriage. How is that even possible? She shouldn't have access to anything beyond what I originally transferred. Medical power of attorney was expanded during your coma to include financial decisions, he explains, his tone suggesting this expansion was both legal and comprehensive. Technically, she was authorized to handle your affairs during your incapacitation. However, there's a clear paper trail showing the money was used for personal expenses rather than your medical care or your children's needs. David slides another document toward me. This one shows a timeline of purchases that make my vision blur with rage. She bought a new car, a $35,000 SUV, paid off substantial credit card debt, made significant home improvements, including a new roof and an updated kitchen, none of which relate to your children's welfare or your medical expenses. I study the bank statements, watching my life savings disappear in a series of large withdrawals. Money Louie and I saved for our children's college fund, for emergencies, for the security that seems laughable now. What about the house listed for sale 8 weeks ago, priced significantly below market value for what appears to be a quick sale? David asks, pulling out real estate documents. Based on the timeline, she needed immediate cash flow to support her spending patterns. The house Louie and I bought as newlyweds, the house where we painted nurseries, celebrated birthdays, and planned our future, was listed for sale like an inconvenient asset while I was unconscious and helpless. And my children. David's expression becomes truly grim. She initiated formal adoption proceedings 6 weeks into your coma, claiming you were unlikely to survive and that caring for 5 children was beyond their financial and physical capabilities. The words hit me like physical blows. each one landing with devastating precision. Adoption proceedings? She was trying to permanently sever my legal rights to my own children while I was unconscious. The betrayal cuts deeper than any physical pain I experienced during recovery. This wasn't temporary emergency care. This was calculated theft of my family. There's more, David says quietly, producing another set of documents. Rebecca's children were removed from the adoption proceedings and returned to your parents' permanent custody. Apparently, caring for 3 children is manageable, but caring for 5 was impossible. The picture becomes crystal clear with devastating precision. My mother kept Rebecca's children, the ones she'd grown attached to over months of care, but she discarded mine like inconvenient complications. My children, who just lost their father and needed stability more than anything, were expendable while their cousins remained family. So let me get this straight, I say, my voice rising with incredulity. She could handle 3 kids just fine, but adding 2 more suddenly made her incapable? Math was never my mother's strong suit, but this equation doesn't add up. What do I need to do to get them back? I ask, forcing my voice to remain steady despite the rage building in my chest. First, we file emergency motions to reverse the adoption proceedings and restore your full parental rights. Second, we petition for immediate custody transfer once you're medically cleared. Third, we pursue criminal charges for financial fraud and exploitation of an incapacitated person. David produces additional forms, all requiring my signature with witnesses present. I have to warn you, Haley, he says softer now. Your mother will likely claim she acted in your children's best interest, that she genuinely believed you wouldn't survive. She may even produce medical documentation supporting that belief. But she was wrong. Yes, she was wrong. But proving malicious intent versus misguided decision-making will be challenging in court. I signed each document with deliberate care, my handwriting shaky but legible. Each signature feels like reclaiming a piece of my life that was stolen while I couldn't protect it. My children are somewhere in the foster system, probably confused and frightened, possibly believing I abandoned them when they needed me most. How long before I can see them? David collects the signed papers. If everything goes smoothly, 2 to 3 weeks. You'll need medical clearance first, then the court needs to review our emergency petitions. The judge will want to ensure you're physically and emotionally capable of resuming parental responsibilities. David pauses at the door, his expression thoughtful. Haley, I should mention that your father has been trying to contact the hospital. He claims he wasn't fully aware of your mother's financial activities. I don't care what he knew or didn't know, I say without hesitation. He could have stopped the adoption proceedings, but he didn't. He could have questioned why my house was being sold, but he didn't. Ignorance isn't an excuse when children's lives are at stake. That afternoon, Patricia helps me start aggressive physical therapy. My muscles have atrophied significantly during the coma, and simple tasks like sitting up unassisted require enormous effort. But anger proves to be an excellent motivator. Every painful exercise brings me closer to leaving this hospital bed, closer to fighting for my children, closer to making my mother face the consequences of her choices. I refuse all visitors except David, refuse phone calls from anyone except medical staff, and focus entirely on recovery. My mother calls the hospital repeatedly, but I've instructed the staff that I'm not available. She doesn't know I'm awake, and I intend to keep it that way until I'm strong enough to face what comes next. The legal battle ahead will be brutal, but for the first time since waking up, I feel capable of fighting it. And when I'm done, my mother will understand exactly how much her necessary decisions are going to cost her. 2 weeks of intensive physical therapy transform my body from barely functional to functionally furious. Every morning starts with exercises that leave my muscles screaming, but anger proves to be an excellent motivator.
Kellerman shuffles through his papers, producing what appears to be a doctor's report. Dr. Stevens indicated that patients with Mrs. Patterson's lung damage had less than a 40% survival rate at the time of admission, he says, handing the document over to Judge Martinez. The judge examines it carefully, her expression growing more skeptical with each line she reads. This report is dated 2 weeks after Mrs. Patterson was admitted to the hospital. Were there subsequent medical updates on her condition? The pause that follows tells me everything I need to know. My mother never requested updated medical reports. She made irreversible decisions about my children's lives based on a single early assessment, then stopped seeking information that might contradict her chosen course of action. Furthermore, David interjects, standing to address the court, Mrs. Davis simultaneously removed Mrs. Patterson's sister's children from adoption proceedings while continuing to pursue termination of parental rights for Mrs. Patterson's children. This suggests selective application of her claimed inability to care for 5 children. Judge Martinez's eyebrows rise in a way that suggests Kellerman should be very concerned. Explain that discrepancy, counselor, she demands. My client developed stronger emotional bonds with Mrs. Patterson's sister's children due to a longer period of care. The attachment was more established. Attachment, Judge Martinez repeats slowly, is not a legal basis for terminating parental rights of living, capable parents. David presents our evidence methodically, each piece building on the last like a prosecutor making a case for premeditated theft. Bank records showing unauthorized withdrawals for personal expenses, property listings for my home without my consent. Most damaging, recorded phone conversations with the adoption agency where my mother specifically discussed placing just the 2 children while explicitly requesting that Rebecca's children be excluded from the proceedings. My mother's face grows paler with each piece of evidence. When David produces documentation showing she purchased a new car using my money during the same week she listed my children for adoption, her attorney whispers urgently in her ear. Mrs. Davis, Judge Martinez addresses my mother directly, her voice carrying the authority of decades on the bench. You stand accused of financial exploitation of an incapacitated person and attempted termination of parental rights without proper legal foundation. How do you respond to these charges? My mother stands slowly, her voice barely audible. I thought I was doing what was best for everyone. The doctor said Haley would die. I couldn't care for 5 children permanently on our fixed income. Yet you purchased a new vehicle with Mrs. Patterson's money rather than using those funds for the children's care? Judge Martinez presses. We needed reliable transportation for the children, my mother stammers, the justification sounding hollow even to her own ears. Judge Martinez reviews her notes one final time before rendering her decision. The courtroom is silent except for the scratch of her pen. Mrs. Davis, your actions demonstrate a clear pattern of financial exploitation and unauthorized decision-making regarding Mrs. Patterson's children. This court finds no evidence that emergency circumstances justified attempting to terminate parental rights. Furthermore, this court is referring this case to the district attorney's office for potential criminal prosecution on charges of financial exploitation of an incapacitated person. Criminal prosecution. The words hang in the air like a Judgment Day verdict. My mother sinks into her chair, the reality of consequences finally penetrating her entitled assumptions about family loyalty and good intentions. Mrs. Patterson. Judge Martinez turns to me. Her cool-placed voice carries the authority of decades on the bench. Full custody of your children is hereby restored. Additionally, all financial assets improperly accessed during your incapacitation must be returned through court-supervised restitution. Walking out of that courthouse with my children's custody permanently secured feels like breathing freely for the first time in months. But the legal victory is only the beginning of reclaiming everything my mother destroyed while I was fighting for my life. Apparently, family takes care of family only when it's convenient. Who knew? 3 months after the court decision, I receive a phone call that shouldn't surprise me, but somehow still does.
My mother has been sentenced to 18 months in minimum security prison for financial exploitation of an incapacitated person, David informs me during our call. Her appeals have been exhausted. Her excuses have been rejected, and the consequences she never imagined possible have finally arrived. She'll be transported to Westfield Correctional next week. Interestingly, that's the same facility where your sister Rebecca is serving her sentence. The irony is so perfect, it almost makes me laugh. The woman who proclaimed family takes care of family while adopting Rebecca's children will now get to practice that philosophy in a concrete cell down the hall from her daughter. How's that for family bonding time? What about my father? I ask, settling into the kitchen chair while Jake and Emma work on homework at the dining room table. Our new house, purchased with money recovered from my mother's spending spree, feels like home in a way our previous place never did. Sometimes, starting over is exactly what a family needs. He's not facing criminal charges, David explains. The prosecution couldn't prove he knew about the financial fraud. However, he's requested a meeting to discuss the children. What children? I respond, looking across the room at Jake and Emma, who finally stopped asking when they can see their grandparents. They've adjusted to our new life with remarkable resilience, though Emma still occasionally has nightmares about being taken away from me. The last thing they need is more family instability. I made his choice when he let my mother put my children in foster care, I tell David. I'm not responsible for fixing the consequences of their decisions. But 3 days later, Tyler shows up at my front door. He's 13 now, taller than I remember, with Rebecca's dark eyes and an expression that carries far too much adult responsibility for someone his age. He stands on my porch holding a grocery bag containing what appears to be his few possessions. Grandpa said I could come stay with you, he says simply. Social services is coming to take us away again because he can't handle all three of us by himself. Behind him, in an old pickup truck, I see my father behind the wheel, his shoulders hunched with defeat. Madison and Sam sit in the passenger seat, both of them staring at my house with the kind of desperate hope that breaks your heart. Tyler, I say, gently, what exactly did your grandfather tell you? That our grandmother is in prison with our mom? That he works too much to take care of us properly? That social services said we needed a better situation? His voice remains steady, but I can see the fear underneath. He said, "You might let us stay here since we're cousins." I look at this boy who's already lost his parents to addiction, his grandparents to poor choices, and now faces the foster system again through no fault of his own. These children didn't choose their parents' drug habits or their grandmother's criminal behavior. They're just trying to survive in a world where adults keep failing them. Come inside, I tell him. Let's get your brother and sister. 20 minutes later, all 5 children sit around my kitchen table while I explain the new reality. Tyler, Madison, and Sam will be staying with us permanently. I'm filing papers to become their legal guardian, not because I'm obligated to fix my mother's mess, but because these children deserve stability and love. Does this mean we're real family now? Sam asks, his 5-year-old logic cutting straight to the heart of the matter.
We've always been real family, Emma tells him with 8-year-old authority. Now we just all live in the same house. The transition isn't easy. 5 children require military-level organization and the patience of a saint. Color-coded schedules, assigned chores, mandatory family meetings where everyone gets to voice complaints and suggestions. But gradually, we develop routines that work. Tyler helps Jake with math homework and teaches him to play basketball in our backyard. Madison and Emma become inseparable, sharing clothes and secrets and dreams about the future. Sam attaches himself to Nee with the kind of fierce loyalty that comes from finally finding an adult who won't abandon him. My father visits once a month, bringing groceries and staying for dinner. We never discuss my mother's choices or his failure to prevent them. Instead, we focus on the children's achievements, their school activities, their futures. It's not forgiveness exactly, but it's functional. 6 months after taking in Rebecca's children, I receive another call from David with news that feels like justice finally being served.
Your mother and Rebecca have been assigned to the same cell block, he tells me, barely containing his amusement. Apparently, Rebecca isn't particularly pleased with her mother's decision-making during your crisis. I imagine my mother trying to explain to Rebecca why she kept her children while giving mine away. I imagine Rebecca's reaction to learning that her mother's financial crimes are the reason all 5 children are now in my care instead of living with their grandparents. How long will they be cellmates? I ask. Rebecca has 8 more months on her sentence. Your mother has 14 months remaining. 14 months of sharing a small concrete space with the daughter whose life choices she spent years criticizing. 14 months of Rebecca asking pointed questions about family loyalty and selective compassion. 14 months of consequences delivered with the kind of precision that only family can provide. Sometimes justice comes from courtrooms and legal decisions. Sometimes it comes from the natural consequences of your own choices, served with a side of irony that's almost too perfect to be accidental. Either way, my children are safe. Our family is complete, and my mother is getting exactly the education and family dynamics she richly deserves. 1 year into our new family configuration, I'm standing in our kitchen on a Sunday morning, watching all 5 children work together to make pancakes for breakfast. Tyler flips them with the concentration of a professional chef. Madison measures ingredients with artistic precision. Emma sits the table with careful attention to symmetry. Jake counts out equal portions for everyone, and Sam provides enthusiastic but largely unhelpful commentary on the entire process. This isn't the family I planned, but it's the family that exists, and we're making it work, one chaotic breakfast at a time. The phone rings just as Tyler successfully flips a pancake without it landing on the floor. I answer to find a voice I haven't heard in over a year. Haley, it's Rebecca. My sister's voice sounds different, clearer, more focused than I remember from before her arrest. Rebecca, how are you calling me? Prison library. I earned phone privileges for good behavior and completing the addiction recovery program. She pauses, and I hear the background noise of institutional life behind her words. I wanted to talk to you about the kids. I look across the kitchen at her 3 children, who've integrated into our household with remarkable adaptability. Tyler has grown 3 inches and started showing interest in girls at school. Madison joined the art club and discovered a talent for sculpture. Sam learned to ride a bike and lost his first tooth. They're doing well, I tell her honestly. Happy, healthy, thriving in school. Tyler made honor roll last quarter. I know, she says. He writes to me sometimes. So does Madison. They tell me about their lives, about how you've made everything stable for them. Her voice carries a weight I haven't heard before. Genuine gratitude mixed with something that might be humility. Rebecca, what do you want? I want to see them. I'm getting out in 6 months, and I want to be part of their lives again. But I understand that has to happen on your terms now. The conversation I've been dreading for months. Rebecca has rights as their biological mother, but these children have been through enough disruption. Their emotional security matters more than anyone's parental claims. What does that look like to you? I ask carefully. Supervised visits at first, maybe once a month, somewhere neutral. I want them to see that I'm sober, that I'm different, that I'm worth taking a chance on again. I want to prove I deserve to be their mother. And if they don't want a relationship with you, I ask, bracing myself for the difficult part. Then I accept that, she says without hesitation. I broke their trust. I chose drugs over my children. They don't owe me forgiveness just because I finally got clean. Her acknowledgement of responsibility surprises me. This version of Rebecca bears little resemblance to the defensive, manipulative woman I knew before her incarceration. I have one condition, I tell her. Any contact with the children goes through me. No surprise visits, no gifts sent without permission, no promises you can't keep. These kids need stability more than they need relationships with adults who might disappoint them again. I understand, Haley. I also want you to know that I'm grateful. You stepped up when I failed them. You gave them the home I couldn't provide. I don't expect to resume being their primary parent. That ship sailed when I chose addiction over responsibility. 6 months later, Rebecca and I sit across from each other at a picnic table in a neutral park while her children play on nearby equipment. She looks remarkably different, healthier, more present, genuinely focused in ways I haven't seen since we were teenagers. Sobriety has sharpened her features and cleared her eyes. Tyler approaches our reunion with scientific curiosity, asking direct questions about her treatment program, her living situation, her long-term plans. Madison hangs back initially, observing carefully before deciding how much emotional investment she's willing to make. Sam treats the meeting like any other social interaction, polite but not particularly invested in outcomes. I live in a halfway house now, Rebecca explains to Tyler, who's always been the family interrogator. I have a job at a local restaurant, and I attend recovery meetings 3 times a week. My parole officer checks on me regularly. Are you going to disappear again? Madison asked bluntly, her artistic sensitivity making her particularly vulnerable to adult disappointments. I can't promise I'll never make mistakes, but I can promise that I'll never choose drugs over you again. That person who hurt you is gone. Over the following months, supervised visits become routine. Rebecca never misses an appointment, never shows up late, never makes promises she can't keep. She attends Tyler's basketball games, helps Madison with art projects, reads bedtime stories to Sam during scheduled visits. Gradually, carefully, relationships begin to rebuild. Not the same relationships that existed before addiction destroyed their family, but new ones based on realistic expectations and demonstrated consistency. The question of custody never formally arises. As months pass and Rebecca establishes genuine connections with her children without disrupting their primary attachments to me, an unspoken understanding develops. They spend some weekends with her, holidays are shared, major decisions are discussed collaboratively. We become an unconventional extended family held together by mutual respect rather than legal obligations or blood relationships. Rebecca has earned back a place in her children's lives, while I remain their primary caregiver and the person they turn to for stability and guidance. It's messy and complex and sometimes uncomfortable, but it works because everyone involved prioritizes the children's welfare over their own emotional needs or legal rights. Standing in my kitchen one evening, watching Tyler help Sam with homework while Rebecca makes coffee and Madison shows Emma her latest artwork, I realize this is what successful family healing looks like. Not a return to previous dysfunction, but the creation of something entirely new that honors both the children's need for stability and their right to maintain connections with their biological family. My mother, meanwhile, shares a cell with Rebecca and gets daily reminders of exactly what responsible parenting looks like when you put children's needs ahead of your own convenience. I'm told their conversations are quite educational for everyone involved. Sometimes the best revenge is living well and raising children who understand the difference between adults who show up and adults who just show off. 18 months after my mother's sentencing, I receive a call from the prison chaplain that changes everything about how I view justice and forgiveness. My mother has suffered a massive stroke and isn't expected to survive the week, Chaplain Williams tells me, his voice gentle but matter-of-fact. She's been asking for you. She's conscious but barely able to speak. The medical staff says if you want to see her, it should be soon. I sit in my kitchen, staring at the phone, processing information that should devastate me, but instead feels strangely anticlimactic. The woman who stole my money and sold my children is dying in a prison medical ward, and I feel nothing beyond mild curiosity about whether this qualifies as karmic justice or simple bad luck. Does she know I'm aware she's asking for me? I asked the chaplain. Yes, she's been quite clear about wanting to see you and your children one final time. My children, the 5 kids who've built a life that doesn't include grandparents who failed them when they needed stability most. Tyler is now 15 and focused on college preparations. Emma is 11 and passionate about soccer. Jake is 11 and building robots in our garage. Madison is 12 and planning to submit artwork to a regional competition. Sam is 7 and learning to read chapter books. None of them have mentioned their grandmother in months. She exists in their past like a character from a story they've outgrown. I'll come, I tell the chaplain, but I'm coming alone. The drive to the prison feels surreal. Visiting the woman who destroyed my family while I was unconscious, now dying in the same institution where she was supposed to learn accountability. The irony would be amusing if it weren't so pathetic. My mother looks smaller than I remember, lying in a narrow hospital bed surrounded by medical equipment that seems too large for her diminished frame. Her face is partially paralyzed from the stroke, but her eyes track my movement as I enter the room. Haley, she manages to whisper, the words slurred but recognizable. Hello, Mom. I'm sorry, she says with enormous effort, each word requiring visible struggle. Everything wrong. Yes, it was. Children? She asks, and I can see hope flickering in her eyes despite everything. They're fine, happy, healthy, doing well in school. They don't ask about you anymore. The truth hits her like a physical blow. Her face contorts with what might be grief or might be the after effects of stroke damage. Please see them, she whispers, but I shake my head. They don't want to see you, I tell her honestly. You taught them that adults can't be trusted, that family only matters when it's convenient. They've learned to build their lives around people who actually show up. She tries to speak but can only produce unintelligible sounds. Tears leak from her eyes following the lines that 18 months of consequences have carved deeper into her face. I watch her struggle for several minutes before speaking again. You could have been their grandmother who saved them during the worst time of their lives. Instead, you became the person who abandoned them when they needed you most. That's your legacy, Mom. That's how they'll remember you. Forgive, she whispers desperately. I already have, I tell her, and realize it's true. Forgiving you doesn't mean excusing what you did or pretending it didn't matter. It means I'm not going to let your choices continue poisoning my life or my children's lives. I stand to leave, but something makes me pause at the door. Mom, if you want to be remembered for something other than betrayal, you should know that Rebecca's kids are thriving. Tyler wants to be a social worker. Madison creates beautiful artwork. Jake reads at a 4th grade level. They're going to be remarkable adults despite everything you and Rebecca put them through. Her eyes close and I think she might be sleeping, but then she whispers, Thank you. I didn't do it for you. I did it because it was right. My mother dies 3 days later without regaining consciousness. The funeral is small. Me, my father, a few elderly relatives who remember her before addiction and poor choices defined her life. Rebecca attends in handcuffs and a prison uniform, her face stoic throughout the brief service. Are you okay? Rebecca asks me afterwards during the few minutes we're allowed to speak. I'm fine. The kids are fine. We don't need closure from someone who caused most of our problems. She loved you, Rebecca says quietly in her own messed up way. She thought she was protecting you. Protecting me by stealing my money and selling my children while I was unconscious? That's an interesting definition of love. Rebecca nods, accepting the point. You're right. I don't want to hate her completely. It makes it harder to forgive myself for my own mistakes. You don't have to hate her, I tell my sister, but you don't have to pretend she was someone she wasn't either. People are complex. She could love us and still make terrible choices that hurt us. Those things aren't mutually exclusive. That evening, at home, I tell the children that their grandmother has died. Their reactions range from mild curiosity to complete indifference. Tyler asked practical questions about funeral arrangements. Emma wonders if this means they need to be sad. Jake wants to know if death changes anything about their daily routines. Madison draws a picture that might be condolence art or it might just be Tuesday's creative expression. Sam asks if dead people can still make bad decisions. She can't hurt you anymore. She can't make choices that affect your lives. You're safe here with people who put your needs first. Good, Sam says with 7-year-old certainty. I like living with people who don't give away tids. That night, lying in bed, I think about forgiveness and justice and the difference between understanding someone's choices and excusing them. My mother died exactly as she lived, creating problems for other people to solve, demanding emotional labor from family members she'd already exhausted. But she also died knowing that her children's children are safe and loved and building lives that reflect the value she failed to demonstrate. Sometimes that has to be enough closure for everyone involved. Tomorrow will bring new challenges and new opportunities to prove that families can be built on choice and commitment rather than just genetics and obligation. Tonight, I'm content knowing that my children sleep peacefully in a house where their security is non-negotiable and their futures aren't for sale. 2 years after my mother's death, our unconventional family has settled into routines that work for everyone involved. Rebecca, now 3 years sober and working as a certified addiction counselor, has earned back a significant role in her children's lives while respecting the primary relationship they have with me. We share holidays, coordinate school events, and split the endless taxi service that comes with raising 5 active children. Tyler is now 17 and preparing for college with the kind of focused intensity that makes me proud and slightly worried. He's decided to study social work, inspired by his own experience navigating the foster system and family dysfunction. Madison, now 14, had her artwork featured in a regional exhibition and wants to pursue graphic design.
Does this mean we have to go live with her? Sam asks, his voice filled with a simple but powerful clarity. No, I reassure him, my heart heavy with the weight of the situation. You're all staying here. This is your home. No one is going to take that from you. There's a moment of silence around the table as each child processes the information. The room is calm, steady, just as our lives have become after years of chaos and upheaval. Tyler, now 18 and accepted to State University with partial scholarships, is focused and mature as always, already preparing for the next phase of his life. Madison, 15, serves on the student council while maintaining a 3.88 GPA. Sam, now 10, has found his place in the community basketball league, where his teammates, including Jake, have become an extension of our family. They all seem to understand the stability we've built, even if the road to get here wasn't easy. I'm not sure how I feel about this, Tyler says thoughtfully, his voice steady as he looks around at the rest of us. It's good she's done the work, but I don't know how to feel about her being so close again. I understand his hesitation. There's a part of me that feels the same way. Rebecca's rehabilitation is undeniable, but the scars she left on all of us haven't vanished. The children have built their lives around me, around the safety and love we've created. Having her back in the picture in a more permanent way feels like a challenge we haven't fully prepared for. I think it's important to be honest with her, I say, my voice clear but gentle. We've made so much progress, and I want to make sure that no matter what happens with her, we don't lose what we've built. If we're going to welcome her back into our lives, it's going to be on our terms, and we need to keep putting your needs first, always. Madison looks down at her hands, absorbing the complexity of the situation before speaking up. It's hard, she admits, her voice softer than usual. I'm happy she's getting better, but I don't want things to change. I finally found my place, and I don't want to lose that. I don't think things will change, sweetie, I reassure her. But we need to keep talking about it so everyone feels heard. We're a family, and we make decisions together. Sam, ever direct, speaks again. I don't want to go live with her. I like it here. I like it with you. His words are simple, but they're exactly what we all need to hear. This is the family we've built, and for the first time in a long while, it feels like it's really ours, free of the baggage of the past. That evening, after the meeting, I sit alone with my thoughts. The question of Rebecca's early release has brought up so many unresolved emotions. For years, I've carried the weight of her mistakes, her addiction, her abandonment of her children. But seeing the children thriving, seeing them grow into their own people with their own dreams and ambitions, has made me realize how far we've come. Rebecca's rehabilitation is important, but so is the stability we've created. It's a fine line we'll have to walk. The following months pass with an underlying tension, but the family dynamic doesn't shift as drastically as I feared. Rebecca's release from prison to a halfway house and eventual independent living is gradual. She maintains a job, attends her recovery meetings, and keeps to the terms of her parole. Her presence in the children's lives is steady but measured. We meet regularly, but boundaries are clear and the children's stability remains the priority. The visits continue, and with each one, Rebecca shows that she's truly committed to rebuilding her relationship with her children. Tyler and Madison, Sam and the others begin to understand that people can change, but trust takes time. They're cautious, but they're willing to give her a chance, on their own terms. At the dinner table one evening, as we all share a meal together, I look around at the faces of my children and the people who've become part of their lives. There's laughter, chatter, and warmth. Tyler talks about his college plans, Madison shares about her latest art project, Sam talks about his upcoming baseball game, and Rebecca asks about the progress on a new community center being built near our home. It's ordinary, and it's beautiful. There's peace in that. A sense of coming full circle. The family we have now may look nothing like the one we started with, but it works because everyone understands their role. There are no illusions, no pretending things are perfect, but we're all here, showing up for each other. As the months continue to pass, I see the fruits of what we've built. Tyler leaves for college, his journey just beginning. Madison excels in her studies and art, and Sam continues to thrive in his own world of little league and imaginative play. They're resilient, and they're growing up in a world where love, commitment, and respect are valued more than any blood relation or legal obligation. Rebecca is a part of their lives now, but she's not the anchor. She's a part of the extended family, and that's exactly how it should be. The children are secure, their future bright, and for the first time in a long time, I feel like the family we've created is one that will last, built on the solid foundation of trust, effort, and the understanding that family is about showing up, not just about what you've done in the past.
Will I still get to live here with Jake and Emma? Sam asks, his voice filled with quiet concern. Yes, buddy. Nothing about your daily life changes, I reassure him, hoping to ease any fears. The conversation that follows reveals how much these children have matured through their experiences. They discuss Rebecca's progress with the kind of measured optimism that comes from having adults who actually follow through on their commitments. She's been different, Madison acknowledges, her voice thoughtful. More like a real mom when she visits. She remembers things we tell her, Tyler adds, and she doesn't make promises she can't keep. 6 months later, Rebecca's early release is approved, and she moves into a halfway house 20 minutes from our neighborhood. The transition period goes more smoothly than anyone expected, mainly because everyone involved has realistic expectations about roles and boundaries. Rebecca finds work at a local restaurant where her manager knows about her background and supports her continued recovery. She rents a small apartment after completing the halfway house program, and gradually a new kind of normal develops for our extended family. Sunday dinners become regular events where Rebecca, my father, and all 5 children gather around our dining room table for conversations that range from homework complaints to college planning to teenage relationship drama. It's chaotic and loud and occasionally contentious, but it's also genuine in ways our original family never achieved. You know what's weird? Emma says during one of these dinners, now 14, and increasingly thoughtful about family dynamics. This is the first time all of us have been happy at the same time. She's right. Tyler is thriving in his senior year and excited about college. Madison's artwork continues to win recognition and scholarships. Jake has discovered a passion for robotics that keeps him busy with robotic competitions. Emma plays varsity soccer and maintains honorable grades. Sam treats this complicated family structure as completely normal and perfectly wonderful. Rebecca attends parent-teacher conferences, helps with homework, and provides transportation to various activities without disrupting the primary relationships these children have with me. She's found her place as an involved parent who supports rather than competes with the person who provided stability during her absence. My father, now living independently again but remaining a regular presence in our lives, has learned to contribute meaningfully rather than just existing on the periphery. He helps with yard work, attends school events, and provides the kind of grandfather presence that enriches children's lives without creating complications. One evening, while cleaning up after another chaotic family dinner, Rebecca approaches me with the conversation I've been expecting. "I want to thank you," she says simply, "not just for taking care of my children, but for giving me the chance to earn back their trust gradually instead of demanding immediate forgiveness." "You did the work," I tell her. "I just provided consistency while you figured out how to be their mother again." "You saved my family," she says, her voice thick with emotion. "Even when I couldn't save myself, you made sure my children had what they needed to grow up healthy and secure." It's the kind of acknowledgement that would have meant everything to me 3 years ago, when I was angry and exhausted and overwhelmed by sudden responsibility for 5 traumatized children. Now it's simply a statement of fact rather than a debt that needs repaying. "They're remarkable kids," I say, watching through the kitchen window as Tyler helps Sam with batting practice while the others cheer from the porch. "They deserved adults who would fight for them. And they got exactly that in you." Looking at our unconventional, complicated, thoroughly functional family, I realize that sometimes the best outcome isn't justice or revenge or even forgiveness. Sometimes it's just creating something better from the pieces left behind after other people's poor choices have done their worst damage. My children, all 5 of them, are safe, loved, and building futures that reflect their potential rather than their past trauma. Rebecca has earned back her place in their lives through consistent effort rather than legal entitlement. My father has learned to contribute positively rather than just avoid conflict. And I've discovered that the family you fight for can be stronger and more genuine than the family you start with, especially when everyone involved understands the difference between what they deserve and what they've earned. Sometimes that's the best revenge of all. Building something so much better that the people who tried to destroy it can only stand back and admire what they could have had if they'd made different choices. 5 years after waking up from my coma to discover my life had been dismantled, I stand in my kitchen preparing Sunday dinner for what has become our traditional family gathering. The dining room table, extended to its maximum length, accommodates 9 people these days. Jake and Emma, now 16 and full of opinions about everything. Tyler, home from college for spring break and full of stories about social work internships. Madison, now 17 and applying to art schools with portfolios that make professors take notice. Sam, now 12 and convinced he'll be a professional baseball player. Rebecca, now 3 years sober and working as an addiction counselor. My father, now 75 and slowing down but still mentally sharp. And occasionally friends and neighbors who've become chosen family. Looking around this noisy, complicated, thoroughly unconventional household, I sometimes marvel at how different our lives look compared to what I could have imagined during those dark months in the hospital. Tyler graduates from college in 2 months with a degree in social work and a job offer from the same county agency that placed him in foster care. "I want to help kids like us,"
he told me during his last visit, his voice carrying the kind of purpose that comes from transforming personal trauma into professional mission. Kids who need adults to fight for them instead of giving up when things get complicated. Madison has been accepted to 3 prestigious art programs and will study graphic design with a focus on social justice campaigns. Her latest series, titled Found Family, depicts the various configurations of chosen family she's observed in our neighborhood. Single parents, blended families, multi-generational households, families built through foster care and adoption rather than just biology. Jake and Emma, now 16 and navigating the particular complications of being twins with different interests in social groups, serve as unofficial mentors to younger children in our extended network. They remember what it felt like to lose everything familiar, and they use that experience to help other kids who find themselves in temporary or unstable situations. Sam treats this complicated family structure as completely normal and perfectly wonderful. He plays Little League baseball with enthusiasm that makes up for any lack of natural talent, maintains solid grades without much drama, and considers himself the luckiest kid in his class because he has the most interesting family story for school projects about family heritage. Rebecca, now 4 years sober and working as an addiction counselor, has built a life that balances her recovery needs with genuine parenting responsibilities. She attends AA meetings twice weekly, maintains regular therapy sessions, and has developed the kind of honest relationship with her children that allows for authentic conversations about addiction, recovery, and family rebuilding. "You know what I'm most grateful for?" she says during one of our recent Sunday dinners, looking around the table at children who've learned to trust her again through years of consistent behavior. "That you let me earn back their love instead of demanding it as a right." My father, now 75 and slowing down but still mentally sharp, has become the kind of grandfather he never was as a parent. He helps with homework, attends school events, provides transportation when needed, and offers wisdom gained through years of reflecting on his own parenting failures. "I was a coward when you were children," he told Rebecca and me during a rare moment of family honesty. "I avoided conflict instead of protecting you from your mother's worst impulses. I can't undo that damage, but I can try to be better for these grandchildren." The foster children who've passed through our home over the years stay in touch. Christmas cards, graduation invitations, wedding announcements from young adults who started as traumatized children needing temporary safety. Our refrigerator looks like a gallery of human resilience, covered with photos and achievements from dozens of young people who've moved through our lives. "Mom," Emma calls from the dining room where she's setting the table for tonight's dinner. "Can Maria and her foster parents come to dinner next week? She wants them to meet everyone." Maria, one of our former foster placements, is now 18 and aging out of the system. She's maintained contact with our family and considers us part of her support network as she transitions to independent living. Her current foster parents are wonderful people who understand the value of maintaining connections with previous placements. "Of course," I reply, mentally calculating how many people that brings our dinner count to. "We'll need to use the picnic table on the porch too." This is what success looks like, I realize. Not the absence of problems or trauma, but the creation of a space where people can heal and grow and contribute to each other's well-being. Not perfection, but resilience. Not traditional family structures, but intentional love expressed through daily choices to show up for each other. During cleanup after dinner, I find myself alone in the kitchen with a cup of coffee and a profound sense of gratitude for the unexpected directions life can take. 5 years ago, I woke up from a coma to discover that my mother had sold my children and stolen my money while I was unconscious and helpless. The betrayal felt complete and devastating at the time. My husband was dead, my children were in foster care, my savings were gone, my house was being sold. Everything I thought I could count on had been dismantled by the person I trusted most to protect what mattered. But in rebuilding from that devastation, I discovered capabilities I didn't know I possessed. I found strength in advocating for vulnerable children. I learned that families can be chosen and created rather than just inherited.
I developed patience for chaos and mess and the beautiful complications that come with loving people who need time and safety to heal. The path from betrayal to this kitchen, from loss to this abundance, from isolation to this community, couldn't have been planned or predicted. It required surviving betrayal and choosing resilience. It required holding people accountable for their choices without allowing those choices to poison my own future. Most importantly, it required understanding that being a victim of someone else's terrible decisions doesn't have to define the rest of your story. You get to decide what comes next, even when the options available aren't the ones you would have chosen. If this story resonated with you, make sure to like and subscribe for more stories about finding strength in unexpected places and building families from love instead of just legal obligations. Looking through the kitchen window at our backyard where Tyler is teaching Sam to throw a curveball while the others cheer from the porch, I feel the deep satisfaction that comes from building something meaningful from broken pieces. This is my life now. Chaotic, complicated, full of people who need me and people I need in return. It's not the life I planned, but it's exactly the life I was meant to live. My mother thought she was taking everything from me when she sold my children and stole my money. Instead, she gave me the opportunity to discover exactly how much I was capable of when everything I thought I could depend on disappeared. Turns out I was capable of quite a lot. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, new joys, new opportunities to show up for the people who matter most. Tonight, I'm content to sit in this peaceful moment, grateful for second chances and the courage to take them, surrounded by the family I fought for and won. And somewhere in a prison cemetery, my mother rests, knowing that her children's children are safe and loved and building lives that reflect the values she failed to demonstrate. Sometimes there has to be enough justice for everyone involved.